Oscar and the Badger.
Hey everybody, it is the Angry Honey Badger here, and it is time for another champion build video. Today we will be taking a look at Leblanc in the mid lane, taking a look at her post DFG. That is right, it is removed. What are we going to do with Leblanc now? Well, we're going to go over that. I think there's two good options. I've talked about it a few times when people have asked, but here's a build. And we'll talk about both of those ways we like to go. We're going to cover her runes, masteries, her abilities, and of course the items in this build. But right off the bat, level 3, we can kill an Azir going all in. It's not the most difficult thing in the world. We have Ignite, couple autos. Make sure you get those autos off. Bust out a health pot while you're doing it. You're good to go. So we pick up the first blood on Azir. Yeah, if you land all your abilities with the Leblanc, you're gonna kill somebody. She is a bit of a lane bully. So to start things off, let's talk about her abilities so we know what we're talking about when the game goes on. So starting off, let's talk about her passive. That is her mirror image. When you are brought below 40% health, you instantly become stealth for 1 second. And then you also have a creatable clone that pops up with you that you can control for 8 seconds. It does no damage. And you can manipulate it any direction. So that is what will happen. Oh, hold on. Getting into another fight. Apparently, we're going to pick up an assist. That's going to happen. I remember now. The illusion's auto attacks will proc on hit effects, though, including damage. So, fun fact. Anyways, that's your passive. Interesting and fun. At level 1, we're going to put a point into our distortion. LeBlanc rapidly moves to target location, dealing damage. Is obviously based off of ability power. It's magic damage. And within 4 seconds, you can reactivate Distortion and jump back to its starting location. And that is your Distortion. We'll talk about maxing in a second. People do it differently, a little bit, depending on what they're trying to do. Yeah, we're gonna go over that too in a second. We'll talk about it in a second. So level 2, put a point into your malice. This is your Q. Whenever you bust this out and you hit a target with it, they are going to be marked, and it's going to deal magic damage. It will mark them for 3.5 seconds. If the target takes damage from one of your other abilities, the mark will detonate, dealing even more damage. So you want to team this up and get extra damage off with that. And then at level 3, you put a point into your ethereal chains. You fling out a chain towards someone. It's a skill shot. If it hits the enemy unit, it will deal damage to them and slow their movement speed by 25%. If the target remains shackled to it for 1.5 seconds, the target will then be rooted for an additional 1.5 seconds, taking even more damage. Very good. Awesome crowd control. Very important to use this correctly and well on LeBlanc. You want to make sure you land this. And then at level 6, put a point obviously into your Mimic. This is your ultimate. Now Mimic mimics your previously casted ability and will let it deal extra damage, and Mimic costs no mana. It's actually quite nice. So, yes, that's your ultimate. It's fun. It's actually really fun, to be honest. Love it. And the whole free cost is great. So, now when it comes to maxing out in this game, you can see I'm maxing my W. And I think we're going to kill Azir again because he's pretty easy to kill with LeBlanc, especially if he runs away. He does hurt, though, but luckily LeBlanc is very mobile, as you can see. And we'll take his blue buff. Hooray! Anyways, but when it comes to maxing, we maxed out our Distortion first. Now, Distortion is good for a few reasons. A, it's easy poke harass damage. That does decent damage. And it's easy to get out. You just jump in and you immediately reactivate and you jump back to your target location where you started. Really easy to get harassed down if you don't want to take too much. Kind of good against an Azir who has a little bit of stupid soldier action happening. The other thing it's good for is for obviously just running away in lane. So that's why you take that at level 1. Very helpful, very good. Does good damage too, like I said. The other reason why I took it against him is this is really your only AoE you have on LeBlanc, and it isn't super amazing as AoE, but this helps me clear minion waves when he shoves into towers with his soldiers. So, because he can clear. Because one thing about LeBlanc is she is one of the worst farmers in the game. Just auto attack wise, standard attack, just it's terrible. If you get good at auto attacking with someone and it's LeBlanc, you're gonna be good at auto attacking with absolutely anyone. So LeBlanc is terrible at autoing. They don't feel rewarding. It feels like you're literally throwing spitballs at people. So yeah, doesn't feel great on minions. You it doesn't help. So clearing really well is Distortion. So putting more points in that obviously will help you get way more damage and help you clear minion waves faster instead of losing them to the tower. Now, if you want to max out your Malice first, this will deal way more damage. Very good. Once again, pick up another little kill. He's going to go forward. We're going to throw a Q at him, the Ignite, and he'll die. Anyways, pretty simple. But if you want to max out your Q first, you will get more damage overall when the game goes on. And you'll be able to proc it with your other abilities, getting that extra damage. It's really good in lane if you can poke. You don't have to worry about other mobility issues or clearing issues. But we're going to max that out second. We'll max out our chains last. And then obviously all, 6, 11, 16. So those are your abilities. Got them covered pretty well. Now the next thing people are going to start asking or wondering is, what are Leblanc's combos? And unfortunately, there's not just one combo. So I can't just be like, oh, well, you just do Q, R, W, E, Q, or something like that. Anyways, it depends on exactly what you want to do with it. If you're looking for the extra mobility, you can just double up on your Distortion, but obviously you want to make sure you get your Malice off first, or start with your Malice if they're in range of it and go straight into your ultimate off that and get the mimic damage from that, and then use your chain. So when it comes to combos, there really is like 12 different ones depending on the situation, whether you're kiting backwards in the fight or you're gap closing in the fight and you need to use your mimic on your Distortion to get more damage, or if they're a very mobile champion and you need to use your mimic on your chains to get them to stay rooted longer, then your combo would be different. The main thing is you want to make sure you don't use your Malice last, because if you do, you won't be able to use any of your other abilities on it to activate its double damage. So that's kind of the main thing. So if you wanted to get the damage off like double, triple E wise, you would do, Q, R, because then that would detonate it from using it already, and then use one of your other abilities to follow it up. Here we're going to dive Azir under his turret real quick. We actually used the Flash and then the Distortion. That was because it's a little bit more predictable if I use the Distortion first, because you can see it coming. Flash is instantaneous, and we can follow up the Distortion immediately afterwards. So we were able to pick it up though, which is fun. And he flashed as I threw my chain, but luckily I already had my Q locked on, and it went over and killed him. So that's what we liked. Now let's go ahead and talk a second about her. Let's talk about the beginning, the first half of our items as we've been going on through this game. So we started off with the Doran's Ring and a couple health pots. That's what you really want to start off with early, unless you're really concerned for some reason. But it's pretty awesome, and you kind of actually want the damage early. It's really good. The first few trips back, we built up and we've built our Morellonomicon. Now, I've talked about this item. It has recently seen a few changes, but it's still good. Still a great item to have, especially against a team that like this team that we're going up against, especially like a Volibear. It helps a lot, actually, with a Grievous Wound on it. But there's two options for first item builds, and here's how I distinguish which one I'm going to do. Leblanc doesn't do great late game if she doesn't have a okay early mid game. If you fall really far behind, you're probably not going to have any impact late game, even once you have full build, because it's just too late. Everybody's already else got full build and probably resists. It's not helpful. So early on in Morellonomicon is helpful for two reasons. A, it gives you mana regeneration. It gives you a good amount of ability power actually once you finish it off, and it's not the most expensive magic damage item, and the cooldown reduction is very, very nice. If I've sat in lane for a very, very long time, let's say till like level 7 without having to go back, and I go back to base with like 2,000 gold, then the first item I'm actually probably going to go for is actually a Deathcap. I will go for the needlessly large rod first, because that's as much damage right there as the Morellonomicon has overall, and at a cheaper price than the Nomicon outright. I obviously lose a few things for it, but my burst potential after finishing off a Deathcap is outrageous, and you will be able to snowball the game incredibly easy. So those are my two options. After my Nomicon is done, if that's what I went for first, because this game I had that early kill and I went and bought part of it first, then I built my Deathcap immediately after it, and I've obviously picked up my Sorcerer's Shoes to go along with everything I have going for me. So we have some penetration, we have ability power, obviously with those first two items, and we have a little bit of mana regen and cooldown reduction. So combo-wise, those first three, the boots, the Nomicon, and the Deathcap, are all incredibly important and really good as your first three items. After that, there's a few options, and we're going to talk about another option as we get to it later in the game. I pick it up late, and we'll talk about that in a second. So, Deathcap first, if you have tons of gold and can afford the needlessly large rod, and that's because you are snowballing your lane either off of kills or either off of insanely good farming, both can happen, or go with the Nomicon because it's safer, and you can pick up pieces of it if you have to go back a couple times as the game goes on. So, gonna pick up a double kill. The last little bit of that goes over to a Tristana. And we're doing pretty good in team fights. We have a good amount of gold too, and we're sitting on another blasting one. We'll talk about all that in a second. Now let's jump over to runes. Now for runes, those I do pretty similar to the rest of my AP mids. We're gonna take magic penetration marks. I'm gonna take the health seals. That's what I want. And very helpful. You want a little bit of extra health on Leblanc. She's very squishy. And then for our glyphs, I take AP per level. I actually take the scaling ones. I want to scale as much damage into the late game as I can. That's what I want on LeBlanc personally. Some people like to take the flat ability power, and some people take magic resist. It's all personal preference, but I just like scaling ones. They feel good as I am going through lane, because as I sit in lane for the first few levels, if I haven't gone back and picked up more damage, I actually feel like I'm getting some okay damage as I'm actually just leveling up. And then when it comes to the for the quintessences, then those are also going to be flat ability power. So that's what we like to take. There's a bit of a fight occurring. We're going to go ahead and distortion in. We're going to get our chains down. We obviously got our Q off too. And we didn't even follow up with our ultimate, but because everybody's around us, we don't need to do that. We pick up a kill though onto the Shaco. And yeah, things are going fine and dandy right now. We're going to keep that happening. So, but yes, let's continue onward. So for those masteries, let's go ahead and bring those up right now. So the masteries down the lower right, that's what I like to take when I'm playing LeBlanc. If you need to pause the video and take a look at it, obviously do so, but obviously going to take the 21 the offense. That's the main thing you want to have going on and get the damage over there. Very helpful. If you haven't seen all the other masteries or rune page videos, they're in the description. There's links to both of them for general rune page setups and mastery page setups for pretty much every champion besides champions that use very specific things because their kit might be a little bit different. So that is the options. We're going to go ahead and jump ahead here. Really a lot of back and forth has been going on. They actually had one good push down mid lane and got our inhibitor, so we're just pushing back against them after we got scattered in a fight, and they did a decent job cleaning up. But we actually are at what you would call the full build at this point in the game. Now what we did after we finished off our first 3 main items is we went for the Void Staff for incredibly good magic penetration, and then we built the Hourglass, and then I made it to late game and I realized, oh yeah, they removed the Deathfire Grasp. I need a 6th item now, and there's a few options here. Typically you would want to pick up your Soulstealer a little bit earlier than me. Also found out something unique because I picked up a Soulstealer, and I believe I had a death after getting a couple stacks, but it took me to 4 stacks instead of 5. Don't ever sell it and then buy it back thinking you're going to get 5 stacks from its original price. It actually took it to 0, so don't ever sell that. I didn't know what it would do this season because of those changes to it, starting with 5 stacks. Just don't sell it. Terrible, terrible, terrible idea. So, as you can see, the full build now, like I said, we went to the Void Staff, and then we picked up the Hourglass. Very important, helps us dodge damage from ignites and a few other things. And then we decided to also pick up that Soulstealer. Obviously, at this point, even without hardly any stacks, we're well over 800 ability power. If you want to take something defensive, you could totally do that with either a Banshee's Veil or a Guardian Angel. Both of those are really good items to help round out LeBlanc in a few ways. I personally believe that you just want as much damage as you possibly want on LeBlanc. She's a bursty mage. Just burst people down. Obviously, we're buying elixirs now too, and it's super awesome. It does the true damage too, and you glow blue, which is super awesome. Why not? So it's amazing. Get it. Do it. Have some fun with it. Other items, I know some people do like to consider the Athene's Unholy Grail as a first item. Not terrible. Not the most damage from it, and you really want to start snowballing the damage that LeBlanc has, so just don't. It's not bad, especially it's got the magic resist if you're going against any AP mid laners, but the problem is there's just no great damage there. So I mean, you can still kill people obviously without tons of damage, but it's just so much easier if you can burst them down with 3 shots instead of having to kite around them a ways, because things can just go wrong too if enemies show up or if they turn the kill around on you. So you just want to be careful with some of that, and yeah, it's not the best way to go about things. So, but that's pretty much everything for LeBlanc. like I said, learn the combo that you need. If you need to kite the kill out, then you need to use your chains for your Mimic. If you want the more mobility of it, then you need to use your Distortion with your Mimic. And if you just want maximum damage, then you can just follow up with your Qs and get that off for the maximum amount of damage. Although, like I said, Distortion does a ton of damage and it's also super helpful for clearing. So that's what I typically go for a little bit. So. But yeah, that is going to be a build for Leblanc. Everything's in the description, and hopefully I'll see all of you guys in the next build video. Hey everyone, it is the AngryHoneyBadger here, and it is time for another champion build video. Today I am playing as Kale.